Amazing.
So you were saying I was imagining you were just getting out of the ocean, and you were in the ocean last night.
Yeah, I went for a really long swim yesterday with swim fins because my friend got me swim fins for my birthday
Oh,
and
nice.
I used them. So I was trying to get the hang of using them.
Are these like the like long ones for kind of like scuba diving, or more like the short ones for strength
They're
training?
not they're not that long. They're like body surfing swim
Hmm.
fins.
These aren't like Zoomers, are they?
I'll show you exactly the kind.
I know that has like a different meaning now.
It is because I actually went out on my birthday to Waimea Bay where a lot of people body surf, but the waves were definitely sketchy. And I was like, this is not safe. I need to practice first. But this is the kind.
Deaf in. Whoa. That link is struggling.
Sorry, I think I
Does that
took
work for you?
it off.
What's
Here.
it? Oh, some of it was missing.
Have you ever done any body surfing or anything like that?
Uh, yeah, I guess. I mean, yeah, I guess whenever I'm near the ocean, I usually try to do something. Either grab a surfboard or swim,
Yeah.
or I mean, I guess I don't know if there's a formal way to do body surfing. I've like grabbed a boogie board or just swim in the waves. I
I
don't
don't
know
know.
what was
I'm an
formal.
ocean newbie, but I've been looking up like body surfing videos and people like body surf pipeline and these crazy waves.
Oh wow. No, I've never done anything very serious. I think I would say I've swum in waves. Just like regular like lap swimming but in waves, and then when the wave's coming you can kind of,
Stuck
ride with it a
under.
little bit or
Yeah. Yeah.
um oh wow. I just noticed your chats. It sounds like we've got some big sessions coming next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
150 people plus.
Yikes. All right. Slowly ramping it up.
Yeah.
Fun. And I noticed, I know Morgan is running a little bit late. Oh, she said, so the issue, I guess, with Morgan's file, the reason that her avatar showing up as black is I think it's a huge file.
Oh.
So probably something we need to I bet it's like from an iPhone and they have those HEIC files, which is
Oh
like
yeah. Yeah.
some super huge format. They're like
Yeah.
beautiful, high res,
Yeah.
tons of colors, very lifelike,
To work
but
on anything else.
impossible to use otherwise. Um, have you read any of Morgan's recent stuff?
I was looking at her Twitter, but I haven't read anything formal. Was she writing like blogs or newsletters?
I don't know. I was going to catch up a little bit on what she's been publishing lately. The
Isn't
founders list top 10
Max is
chart.
a follower of hers? I don't know if he has any like top Morgan tidbits that he wants to dig into.
They have this top audio essays selected by the founder community. So some of these, I know a few of these I've read before. Maybe not all of them though. Why Figma Wins? I don't think I've read that one.
Where are these?
I was just noticing there's like a top audio essays that that they have shared from. I saw this on Morgan's Twitter. Actually, we have. Let me clean up the source stuff. So I guess it's founderslist.nfx.com. So it's top voted audio essays.
Oh, cool. Oh, interesting.
Wow, and they're doing space tech. So I noticed
I saw that.
in February they co-led a $9 million seed in Stoke, a space tech company making reusable second stage rockets. Wow. She was quoted in spacenews.com.
I saw that.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm curious to just even ask her about her career path.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's so young. I feel like she's had 3 careers already at least.
Right. Mm-hmm.
How did you first meet her? Was it through Curious Conversations?
Yeah. I think around that era. So she was at Facebook, and she was kind of the only person really with I think she was like self-appointed full-time agenda to get Facebook caring about cryptocurrencies in one way or another. Actually, I mean, she should tell the story, but that's my understanding. And it's now taken on a life of its own, where David Marcus runs it. It's a bigger team around it, but she was like carrying the torch and burden solo for quite a while. And so I think when she was doing that, I think through the networks of people around, what we were organizing with Curious, I think is how we got connected originally.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, and this link that Max shared or he didn't share the link here. Let me share the link. Super interesting. Casually good friends with Vitalik. Yeah, I'm just skimming through it right now.
Mm-hmm. The rise of hyphenisms. Unbundling of religion.
I love this question, which I'm curious to know what she thinks also.
Yeah. And I think I've told you before about a group of friends that started a secular religion.
Yeah.
So she is friends with them too. So I wonder if.
Oh, we should talk about that.
Yeah, I don't know how much. Yeah, but let's see. She probably knows what is okay to talk about. I don't know. I'm not close enough to it to really represent it properly anyway.
What the rules of secular religion are? Does it have a name? Is that a secret?
It does, but I don't want to out them.
It's not the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster.
No, it's. I think it's like a less irreverent, but kind of same idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool though. Oh, this is cool. Here's the follow-up question she asked.
Do you think subreddits count as religions? That's actually kind of a useful one too.
Yeah.
because it seems like it has a lot of the features that you'd look for in a religion, and kind of this, shared set of values and some sort of tone set by some group of leaders, and
Yeah.
some rituals, in the memes that are shared, are sort of the habits.
Yeah.
Revolt of the public comes to the stock market. So this was written, when was this? I don't see a date on it. Do you know when this was published?
This post?
Yeah.
She tweeted it on February 16th.
Okay. Because I'm just curious, because of the revolt of the public comes to the stock market sounds relevant to maybe some of the Reddit
Yeah, no,
/TME.
definitely after this, because I think they're talking about it in it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, what happened with GameStop?
Yeah. Oh, here's the follow-up. I don't know if you've seen this, Max.
Morgan.
It happened.
Hey.
It worked.
Welcome.
Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yeah. All good. How are you doing?
Hey.
Welcome.
Well, I'm sweating because I was stressed about why this wasn't working, but I'm so excited to be here. Nice Zoom background.
No, nothing to stress about. We're just having fun.
This is such a fun idea.
Are you? Was it?
I said this is such a fun idea.
Oh, cool. Thanks. Yeah.
Lunch break is always my favorite part of the day.
Yeah, it's really fun. We always get to, if we sometimes have interesting guests like you can come by and we can ask you lots of questions and discuss what you're reading. But sometimes it's just me and Mishti hanging out, reading Twitter together and sharing links of like, hey, did you see this one? Did you see this one? So
I need to join these way more often. I'm staying at my parents' house, and apparently their internet sucks. So if this is really bad, I don't know if there's a mobile version, but I can always switch over to that.
Oh, well, mobile is not great for streaming video, but you can use mobile web for kind of watching or participating in chat. But since you're our featured guest today,
I'm closing some tabs.
We can switch to mobile internet if that works better.
Like a hotspot.
Closing some tabs, and I'm optimistic it's going to work.
Okay.
And my parents will be an angry text message.
Are your other tabs doing a lot of streaming or something?
Just mining Bitcoin.
On purpose or accidental? Yeah, thanks for coming by. So I didn't give you too much prep on lunch break, but basically, like we were starting to tell you, it's just, we make these videos together every day. We live stream and we discuss whatever we feel like. It's super low key, low stress. We're recording and publishing out on the web and streaming out to YouTube, but it's otherwise, we're just hanging out. And then what happens is if we hear some great moments that we want to share, we can actually create highlights and we share them out on Twitter. So that's kind of the general vibe here. So don't stress. We don't even invite a lot of people. We just sort of make a video together. People can come if they want, but it's more about us doing our thing and having fun.
Yeah, we just read things, talk about them. We started going through. Max shared this post when you took a walk with Vitalik and had all these interesting topics that you guys were talking about. So we started talking about some of them in chat before you came.
Any favorites? He makes it pretty easy to talk about things.
Yeah. How did you first meet him?
We were at the ZCon conference in Croatia, and this was the day after Libra, now called DM, was announced. So this was June 19th, 2019. So I was actually a day late to the conference because I had to be in California when that happened. I'm saying that to say that I've never been more popular in my life than arriving at that. From whatever on DM becomes, who knows? We'll see. But like in that moment, that was like a thing. So after some event, and like I feel weird even saying this because it's like, I mean, there's Vitalik and then there's like subterranean me somewhere down there. But like we were both mobbed by people, and I just went up to him and I was like, "Do you want to just go hide somewhere?" I'm like, I don't know, it's like famous, except like maybe today, but this wasn't that fun. So like, why don't we go hide somewhere? And that was how we became friends.
That's amazing. I love that.
And then then we went on a walk on the beach, and we didn't talk about work, which was really nice. So yeah, we don't really talk about crypto that much, which is different if nothing else. That's why for this podcast, I wanted to show the other side of him too. So that's why we tried not to talk about crypto.
Yeah.
Right. But talking about like religion and stuff is kind of an interesting, crypto adjacent, let's call it.
It's like everything adjacent though. It's like the heartbeat of literally any community. Yeah, we wanted to ask you about that. You asked him how he defined religion and kind of the smallest units of religion. How do you think about that, and especially with like online communities and stuff today?
I'm so flattered that anyone even listened or read that. So thank you. So I'm like, wow, someone was a question. Just kind of like what I read on the internet, which I think someone brought up before. It's related to this. There was some article, some like long article in the New Yorker, some publication that does long articles about QAnon and is it a religion? So that like really sparked that right at some point in quarantines. Could have been a month ago, could have been 10 months ago. It's all the same. And that is kind of what led me to see some of these other communities as a religion. I think, I guess in the loosest form, we define a religion as something that organizes people. I would say like that's probably like my loosest definition of religion, something that organizes people. And that something, I guess, historically has been God or God-like beliefs. And now that something I believe has morphed into like QAnon. I do believe QAnon is a religion. It organizes people. Mm-hmm. It organizes people. That's the loosest form. And then like more specifically, you could say it organizes people to do X, Y, and Z. So it organizes people to have certain values. It organizes people to not do certain things. It organizes people to do certain things. It organizes people to form tribes. But I would say the loosest definition is just organizing people. And then there's 50 shades of that, or 50 million shades of that.
How much do you think that a belief system is like at the core of the organization, or is it like a side effect or like a auxiliary to the actual organization of people?
I believe it's at the core. I think the related question is it consciously or subconsciously at the core? Because I think it's like, right, the belief system is like what architects everything around a religion or QAnon or whatever it is. It's like we believe X, Y, and Z. Our leader believes X, Y, and Z. And I think that's kind of like the beliefs are the primordial soup that form the other aspects of the religion. But the conscious and subconscious part is I don't know. It probably varies on the religion, but also varies on the person. Is it beliefs first, or is there something else that sucks them in?
Right. I mean, because I think about the fact that some, like there are like kind of communities that get formed for like a common purpose, but they don't necessarily ask for a lot of, let's say, kind of belief without evidence, right? If you want to say, like, that's not a core part of some communities. And I don't know, like, would you call those communities semi-religious, or like is a major factor that there has to be some untestable, unknowable, I don't know what it is, but is there something that's kind of untestable, unknowable that has to help form a core of why we're gathering? Like, is a university a religion? Like, it's a gathering of people.
I guess that organizes people.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about like how emergent these things are. Like maybe they get formalized over time. But you guys were also talking about like Wall Street bets and subreddits. And those seem like the kinds of things, well, I don't actually know, but at least some groups like this probably don't start with super top down. Like it's hard to just like strike out as some solo, like aspiring religious leader and be like, here are my 5 principles, and then like aggregate a community versus maybe principles and rituals sort of emerge and then they're like more and more codified and the norms maybe even written down over time.
Well, now David's having me second guess my answer. I'm thinking.
No, I'm just curious to.
Just ripping, yeah.
Religion's been a great tool of organizing people, right? Like it's kept humans from like not killing each other, doing the right thing. And I don't misquote stats, but there's charts. Some religions are growing, some are declining. But I think on average, like people, the world as a whole is becoming less religious, maybe by the traditional definition, but then people are finding things like QAnon. So I wonder if in like 100 years, the historians will look back and say like we're going through a phase where religion was redefined or it went to mean other things. Like religion, like when we grew up, or when I don't know, like history textbooks, like you learn about religion, like the church and Jews, all the. But I do wonder if in 100 years there will be like a religions 2.0 chapter of the ebooks or however people learn, and that it will be like, okay, like religions V1 were Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, and religions V2 were QAnon, Bitcoin, Trump. I don't know. Trumpism is probably some definition of a religion.
Yeah.
I actually wonder if there's also, is there a transition from, like, I think it used to be very common to be polytheistic, and then we went through like at least several centuries where monotheism was kind of the flavor, and it feels like, with QAnon and Bitcoin and potentially other, Wall Street bets as religious type of entities, it almost feels like we may be moving back toward a polytheistic approach. Do you think
that resonates? But I wonder, like, why? Because you could say, like, the internet gives people so many more choices. You don't need to go to one place for everything.
Yeah.
Like in the age of the church, and like you would go to the church, and like that was the one place you went to for all your information, for your community, for your family, for your values, etc. Or you went to your temple, or you went to your mosque, or wherever. But now you go to the internet, for which, to your point, you can go to various temples, all with various browser tabs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You don't need to get everything from one place. I don't know what the technology was when polytheism was first. Like, why did that shift? But
why did that emerge and why did it go away?
It's not even, I feel like the old polytheism was sort of still within one tradition. Like you would still have one gathering place and then maybe multiple gods. But we're sort of talking about this new, like in the metaverse, you can have many gathering places with many different sources of community. I mean, one of the strongest pulls for anyone attending church or a temple or whatever is probably this like very intense sense of community and belonging and support. So to whatever extent we're able to find that in our different verticals on the internet, that's like, I don't even know if I'd call it polytheism. It's more just like poly-religion.
Right.
It's like it's poly at the more meta level.
It's not necessarily gods, it's different belief systems. Well, then you're wondering, like, what is is there a common denominator across Bitcoin, Wall Street bets, or Trumpism and QAnon, or maybe Trump and Wall Street bets? I'm sure there's different combinations.
Well, for you guys, what are your tribes? Like, what do you ally with? Or, like, what's your, crypto or whatever religions you kind of see manifesting around you that you identify with?
Crypto one, but I wonder, I'm not a religious expert, by the way, so I'm going to completely get some analogies wrong here, but I wonder if crypto is Christianity and then there's like within it. Right, like there's like evangelicals, there's Catholic, like there's all, like, because I don't think that, and from someone who's Jewish, I will naively say that I thought all Christians were the same, but then when you speak like Protestants and Luther, like it's obviously all different. And I think the same from the outside of crypto is like everyone's like crypto, but internally it's like there's Ethereum people, there's Bitcoiners, and they could not see themselves as more different. So,
right.
I wonder if like crypto is the Christianity, and then there's all the different sects within it. But I would say that I broadly identify with like the Christianity here. Obviously, the crypto community is a religion of sorts. Maybe another aspect of religion is like when you I'm trying to think of how to phrase this without offending anyone. like when you like now that like when you've been crypto red pilled, you speak to non-crypto people and you're like, you don't get it. And I wonder if like that's how people felt who like saw God versus didn't see God. I didn't want to come off obnoxious, but I'm sure that like there's a lot that crypto people are getting wrong as well. But just to the point of like it's harder than I would like to admit to have like dinner conversations with people that aren't crypto red pilled. And I'm sure that was an aspect of religions in the past. Like it's just easier to bond with people that have the same vocabulary. Yeah. And religion gives you a lexicon.
Right.
Do you think that so across the sort of higher level tribes that you feel like you identify with, is it difficult? Is there any sort of like difficulty communicating in a cross-cutting way? Do you know what I mean? Like across them? Like Jewish community, for example, crypto, I don't know what other ones there are.
Totally. Like I'm not particularly religious, but culturally very Jewish. I mean, look at my hair and I'm whatever. And I wouldn't say like it's Passover this weekend. Like I'm not. Crypto does come up more and more because my dad's gotten really into it, but I wouldn't say that was like an overlapping Venn diagram. But if you think of like in this whatever world, we need to come up with a good phrase for this. Like you have all your overlapping circles or Venn diagrams or whatever, and like since there's so many, the people that have the same makeup as you is probably very small, and those people you probably feel extra special bond with. Like I was speaking to someone this morning. Like it just so happens when I stopped to think about it that a lot of my closest like chosen family in California, I'm originally from New York, are other New Yorkers who have chosen to come to California. So that's like two, right? That's like a cross. There's like a cross because we all grew up like we walk fast, we talk fast, we like understand. We have a lot of the same shared language, but we consciously chose to have a life out here. So like we share that as well. I'm not explaining this correct, but it's just like the people you probably overlap with and the most things you even have like a stronger connection with. So like the Jews from New York who chose to move to California, I have more in common with than the Jews from New York who are in New York. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
And the reason why like if you're like a crypto Ripple person, you probably identify more with other crypto Ripple people than crypto Bitcoin people. And
It is funny though. It does feel like the stronger division comes from people who are more closely potentially confused by outsiders. So like you mentioned, Ethereum, Ripple, and Bitcoin people, probably anybody who's not involved looks at it as like, oh, it's crypto nerds. But it feels like they may like or dislike. Yeah, but similarly, like a Christian, like a non-Christian may look at Christians and be like, okay, it's kind of all the same. Like,
that's what
different flavors. But probably, I mean, I couldn't. I mean, from the people I know involved, it feels like it's easier to be an outsider and lump it all together and not. You can either kind of take it or leave it. But if you're inside, there's like pretty. I would say, I mean, vicious is maybe the wrong word, but it's pretty strident separation and kind of desire for clarification of the us versus the other. Relative to an outsider, just like whatever, a bunch of crypto nerds, kind of.
Right, like so. There's almost more emotion behind like a Ripple person trying to draw a distinction between them and a Bitcoin person than between a Ripple person and a non-crypto person, which like they probably don't even. Yeah.
That makes sense. Maybe like the more you share some fundamental values, the more you care what those other people think, and that's why the divisions also become more intense, because you might not necessarily care what like some farmer in Ireland who has never heard of crypto cares. But you do care what like your Ethereum buddy thinks about X, Y, or Z new system in crypto. So
right, it almost feels like uncanny valley, like you're close enough to really understand all of the mechanics, but you've come to like a different conclusion.
Which
and
hurts
so
more.
it hurts more to be
yeah.
Well, that's like in Judaism, for people who like aren't familiar with Judaism, which like they think I forget, this came up recently because I'm at a venture firm now, and there's 4 partners, and one of the other 2 of us are Jewish, 2 are not, and there was an Orthodox Jewish founder, and they like said something to us about like, you know, and we were like, Orthodox, like we couldn't be more different than Orthodox Jews. Like, what do you think we do better? Because within the Jewish community, like if you're Reformed, which is like not religious, and Orthodox, like we don't get along at all. Not that we don't get along at all, but there actually is like, it's fairly divisive. Like if you visit Israel, they don't get along at all. Like the biggest political divide in Israel, which there was an election this week, is usually along the lines of religious and non-religious Jews. They don't like it at all. They don't get along at all. It's very, yeah.
I had a friend who referred to herself as a West Coast Jew. Is that the same as Reformed, or is that a separate distinction between?
50 Shades of everything is West Coast probably means you're not particularly like religious.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you were first, I don't know the origin story of like Morgan getting into crypto, and now I'm curious because when you were first like dipping your toes into this new religion that was sort of forming at the same time and exploring these different factions within it, what was that like for you, and how did it play out over time?
Well, David was there for a lot. I'm having a lot of deja vu. I haven't seen you. Well, it's great to see you, but
I know, yeah, great to see you too.
I think was secretly the puppeteer behind a lot of projects in crypto that you know of, which I'm assuming you know because you spend so much time with him. But for those who don't know, David hosted these dinners. I don't know how I got so lucky, or if you like accidentally typed in my email address, or how that happened. He just like felt like the chosen one to be invited to these things, and it was like all the people and all the closest friends I have in the space. Or not all, but like a high majority came from that. So thank you to David. But prior to that, I guess I did something that at least got my email to slip in. I first was introduced to crypto in the summer of 2013 when I was out here interning, and one of the roommates in the intern program I was in, or the guy who lived, like there was like a girls' apartment and a boys' apartment. So one of the guys who lived in the apartment next to the girls' apartment was buying drugs and fake IDs on Silk Road. And he was like, you have to see this. And he's like, I think he was telling me about Bitcoin. And he showed me the Silk Road. And I saw like AK-47s. And I was like, no, to keep it away from me. And I think that was a mistake. Obviously, he's like retired now. But I was like, I don't know. I was like such a goody two shoes. And that was so scary. Like drugs and guns. So it obviously was wrong for not being like intellectually curious enough to be like, wait, but what about the Bitcoin part? I think I was just like, I don't want to, I need to get a degree and my diploma, and I don't want to. So I was wrong. That was when I first was introduced to it. And then I ended up not going back to school. I do have a diploma to my parents, because my parents would kill me if I didn't. But I ended up staying out here, and that was when I went to Andreessen Horowitz. So I joined Andreessen Horowitz in August 2013. And I was there until May 2016. So like in that time was when they had their come to Jesus crypto moment, at least publicly or at least internally. Maybe individually they had it separately. But Mark Andreessen had written this op-ed for the Wall Street Journal called something Bitcoin, something with Bitcoin. And they had brought on Balaji Srinivasan, who's like, as like a crypto person, and they invested in Coinbase, and they invested in this. So I worked on my first crypto deal, was this company called Media Chain, which became mine, it's this Dennis Nazarov and Jesse Walden, who is like now a Variant Fund and Mirror. And it's like, so it all happened then. That was like when I was like, okay, I should pay attention. And I sat next to, I was on the deal team there. I sat next to this guy, Gil Shafir, who's definitely, I don't know where he is right now. He's like ice climbing somewhere. And every day, buy Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin. And I once again was like, I don't have that much in common with Gil. Like, I don't know. Again, once again, like I paid enough attention and got to work on some deals and was like intellectually curious enough, but didn't listen enough to that point. Anyway, that was like a mistake when you go back and like look at buying like $10 worth in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
You're like this. I guess I could have bought nothing, but just to the point of like intellectually curious enough, but it still was fringe to the point that I was wrong. And like I was just wrong. Like I don't know what was wrong with me that I didn't like find that the most interesting thing in the world, but I didn't. And then you start to read more, and you start to read more, and you start to read more. So then I left and I went to Medium, and like you start to read more, you start to follow along things, and follow various projects, and like stayed in touch with like Jesse and Dennis, and was speaking to them about how to like tokenize Medium and all these things for like 2016. And went to Facebook, not to work on crypto, but when I got to Facebook a month in was when I realized there was no one at Facebook working on crypto, blockchain, decentralization, whatever today's preferred noun is. So I went to, and I had been following the space enough to know that at least someone at Facebook should know about it. And that was when I feel very lucky that my boss at the time let me dedicate 100% of my time to like figuring out what the hell should Facebook do. And that was maybe when I met David. So my job at that point became one part, what the hell should Facebook do? But before that, the other part was like, Morgan, you need to learn what's going on. And that I met all the tribes.
Yeah.
When Libra first got started, we spent the first few months doing what we called kissing frogs. I don't know if this is what, like, literally the meetings were called, like kissing frogs. And the thinking was we need to, like, if you haven't spent 100% of the time in the space, you're behind. And if you spent 100% of your time in the space, you're still behind. But you have to at least try to catch up. And we're like, we both admitted, David, Marcus, and I, that like we hadn't spent 100% of the time in the space. So before we did anything, we just met with as many people as we could have. Mm-hmm. Tribe leaders and religious leaders, whatever analogy we're using now.
Yeah. That's so interesting. What a really cool opportunity. I also wonder if and how that informs how you think now, like more generally investing and looking at themes outside crypto as well. How do you think about picking up on like these fringe signals, like 2013, you looking at crypto for the first time?
Yeah.
What's your mindset towards finding those now? And yeah.
Yeah, what are the rough edges? We talk about like what is wild.
Yeah.
What area feels wild to you right now?
I guess by definition, we don't know what it is yet, right? Like it's going to hide, like, or hindsight, people are going to be like, I knew then, but it's like, did you really? And like, there's like confirmation bias over the years. But last night, we've been experimenting with this clubhouse where me and two friends, Ariel Zuckerberg and Lee Jacobs, we interview founders and their parents with the thinking that
I love that.
learn something about people through their parents, like how were they raised, what they want to be. I'd love to have you. So we'll follow up on that. But last night we had my partner, James Currier, and his 4 teenage boys. And I asked them, I'm like, what do you guys think is so cool that you think I don't have any idea what it is?
Yeah.
I really have an answer. I'm so disappointed, but I need to text them again. They spend a lot of time in Discord. I don't feel like I spend as much time in Discord for non-crypto things, but it seems like that's like their whole social life. Like they have Discord about all these parts of their life. There's like the obvious answers, like, DeFi and NFTs feel like a thing. And maybe those are them. I don't know. Because I do think like there will be a correction there, but in 10 years they'll still be there. So maybe, which was similar to Bitcoin. It was like people thought it was crazy, but everyone was talking about it in 2013, 2017.
Yep.
But those seem like that's not necessarily anything crazy.
I noticed you guys just did an investment in space.
I was going to say space. Yes.
Because is that a space that you're spending a lot of time in, or was that just kind of you happened to bump into it and it looked interesting? Or
I am so glad that you brought that up, because that's gonna be my other thing. Because like maybe another way to frame the question is, what's something in 10 years that's just so normal? And even crypto, not really normal for us. Maybe it is, but like it's not. And I do think I was going to say in 10 years, I think that just like sending stuff up to space, it's going to just be like, ordering a package on Amazon. Maybe 15 years. I've always been a space hobbyist in that, like, love reading space books. Loved, like, when I had a telescope as a kid, that was like the coolest thing ever. Going to the planetarium was the coolest thing ever. Watching every Apollo documentary is my favorite thing. But as far as investing in space, like, I don't know anything about that. I shouldn't say that. I didn't know anything about that. I still don't know. And so this deal was sent to me from someone I used to work with at Andreessen, Adrian Fenty, if you're listening. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And he sent it to me, and I, like, ignored it for a month or 2 months. Well, I was in between jobs, and I also, like, wrote back. I didn't ignore it, but I was like, we don't do rockets. Like, NFX stands for network, which, so, like, rockets is, like, kind of like there's not really, that seems like the opposite of, like, software network effects. But thank you. And then I just couldn't stop thinking about it. So I was like, okay, I don't want to waste anyone's time, but, like, it will be an interesting 30 minutes of my life. So Andy, the founder of Stoke, will tell you that, like, I ignored his email. I didn't ignore his email. And then I spoke to him, and I was like, okay, well, and I'm seeing the comments now. What else am I missing? NFX stands for network effects. We'll come back to that. And it's so cool. I can tell you about Stoke. So the thesis, generally, I'll talk about space and then can specifically talk about Stoke. I'm not trying to pump my portfolio. I'm pumping
please. We want to learn about space.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. We are in the one analogy, well, I guess to pause for a second. One of the coolest things I've done at the new job since, or maybe even before, like, just in total, is I got to speak to the general who wrote the paper on the Space Force. His name's General Quast. So most of these analogies I'm about to give are his. Thank you, General Quast. He was really helpful. So he would say that we're in the tall ships phase of space, in that, think back, hundreds of years when we were in the tall ships phase of transportation, no one would have thought to manufacture things overseas, or no one would have thought to go on vacation in London. Like, that was an absurd thing. And then transportation got better, cheaper, faster, and it opened up the world to all these possibilities. So he believes, I might sneeze. He believes, and now I believe, that the next $1 trillion industries are going to happen in space. Other than crypto. Crypto is the current $1 trillion industry. Space is the next. And the only way to get there is to make transportation cheaper. So Stoke is 100% reusable rockets. Like, SpaceX is partially reusable, but the thesis is if it's 100% reusable, you could dramatically reduce the costs. And their mission, I'm going to screw up their actual mission statement, but, it's effectively to get it to be cheaper to get to space. Because SpaceX and Blue Origin, the analogy that the general gave me was those are like the locomotives of space, in that they're very big, very expensive, but locomotives did help colonize the West, and Stoke is building the Model T of space, like every man's car, to get around. And what is, like, mind-bending there is who knows what can happen in space once it's cheap enough to go. Like, I don't think we know yet. Like, I don't know if we have the mental models yet for what's possible. The same way with crypto, like when the internet, thanks for saying, like when the, am I going to say the same quote twice? Okay, I'll say it once.
Yeah.
That's allowed.
But the same way, like when the internet started, you had like pets.com because you had a mental model for pet stores you put on the internet, but no one had the mental models for like Netflix, Uber, etc. So by the way, I think you're seeing with crypto, right? Like, you're mapping traditional finance to this now, but now you're starting to see like crypto native things really take off. The same thing with space. Like, you're like, okay, what can we do? What can we send to space? People, like, we've done that before. But if it only costs $20,000 to send a payload to space, like, who knows what you could do up there? So people are talking about manufacturing in space. People are talking about drug development in space. People are talking about, there's something about like growing spiders in space. I'm not really sure why. So there's that whole part of it, is like what industries will be built in space and what industries are more efficient to do in space than here. And there's a whole climate change angle too, because there's like a lot of things that we do on Earth because we don't have another choice, but they're bad for the planet, that if we could outsource them to space might be better. So that's like the real good part. And then there's also, I'm always hesitant to talk about this, especially in Silicon Valley. I feel like it's not cool for companies to work with the government, but the space wars are coming. So, and in the US, a lot of that I think will come from private companies. So I don't think it's a left or right thing. I think it's just an American thing. And if you want like America to win, you want the best space innovation to happen here. So that's a whole other angle. That was a long rant. I'm going to pause. I could talk about this for a long time. Thank you for...
Yeah. So I don't think I have a full picture of like what is the, I don't know, landscape is the right word, but what does the landscape for space look like? Are there sort of three major buckets? Like there's the transportation up, maybe some sort of satellite infrastructure around, and then the crazy spider projects in the miscellanea, or like what, how should we think about like the structure? I would love to read a blog post on this. Have you seen anything written or?
I'm going to write a note to myself and I'll find.
Oh, music.
Because I feel like the core, I feel like there's a lot of exciting stuff that I hear little whispers of, but similar to maybe biotech, I don't feel like I have necessarily like the framework for like where to hang this idea or where to hang this company to help me build out a mental model of like what all is going on, what are the players, what are the businesses, what's the strategy look like.
So I did a ton of reading, and I'll share. There's some Morgan Stanley report that was like incredibly helpful that I'll send around to my inbox. Remind me, or I wrote note to myself.
Yeah.
There's various ways to fragment the space. So one, it's like sending things up and down, I guess, is like one bucket. Doing things up there is another bucket. Those are probably two buckets. So sending things up and down, you could break that into, by the way, Andy, if you ever listen to this, don't get mad at me for, I'm sure I'm describing this all wrong. Sending things up and down is not the rocket science, is what I'm saying. There's two ways that I broke that down in my mind. One is so SpaceX and Blue Origin, their missions are to colonize Mars. So if your mission is to colonize Mars, you can build a very different type of rocket. Like you don't care if it costs $2 million to send someone up. It's a one-way ticket, they're going. But if your mission is to send up any payload for $20,000 with 24-hour turnaround times, it looks very different. So that's like kind of how I broke up like the sending things up and down. It's like price and speed. So if you're trying to colonize Mars, it's a very high ticket item, and you can book it a year in advance. And you know you're going. Oh yeah, that was a good report. Thanks, Max. But if you want to like ship stuff to space, it needs to be both a lot cheaper, and you don't know a year in advance. So that's like roughly two buckets. And there's some other companies trying to be like FedEx for space. And
is the reusability issue of rockets, that's always like a cost and speed? That's sort of helping optimize cost and speed trade-off?
That's another way. So that's what I'm saying. That there's another way. So there's like a z-axis here also, and just like the up and down bucket of reusability. Stoke, as far as I know, is the only 100% reusable, and they think that, yes, that's both a cost thing and they'll be able to have faster turnaround times. Whereas there are some other companies, there's so many cool companies. There's like Rocket Lab, there's Relativity Space. These are also like FedEx for spaces. They're not 100% reusable. They, honestly though, it's like Stoke's going to try to be less expensive, but like, who knows? It's so far away. Like no one actually knows how much this costs, but those are variables that we hope and plan to play with, and they're going to do it. I know they'll do it. Then there's like, okay, what kind of stuff do you do in space? So there's like all these companies doing like space manufacturing and space farming, satellites.
And would those all be customers of the transport folks? So the transport folks would build, are they kind of building with some customers in mind, or are they collaboratively working with somebody who wants to do farming and figuring out sort of what their specs need time?
They've signed so many LOIs. I'm so proud of them, even though it's like, we hope to launch a rocket in a few years. So that's been really cool too, because you're like through their LOIs, you kind of like are seeing insight into that second bucket of like what's the kind of stuff that's going on up there. So I don't know, I won't say the name of the company, but I don't know if any of these are public, and you don't get me in trouble, but I think like some ideas I've heard of through them are like, you're going to need gas stations in space. That's something I like feel dumb. I hadn't really thought of before. You're going to need gas stations for space. You're going to need like mechanics for space. You're going to need to get those people up and down. So all to say that I don't think anyone has any idea what space is going to like really look like yet. And even like Andy's PhD advisor, who I spoke to, who was great, was like, yeah, no one knows what's going to happen if it's cheap enough to go to space. The same way, like who knew what you were going to do overseas before it was cheap enough to fly.
Right.
Yeah.
Like going for a meeting, like, I mean, maybe we're not going to do that ever again, but like flying from San Francisco to China to take a meeting, like that, who would have known? That's insane. So, but presumably all those use cases will still need to get up and down, and therefore Stoke. That's my investment thesis.
Yeah. Right. This seems like a good space. It seems like a good space for somebody to kind of, you know what Jason Jacobs has done with My Climate Journey?
No, that gets written down too.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, so good. So Jason Jacobs is, he was the creator of a company called Runkeeper, like a decade and change ago. And he was sort of, kind of like on the beach thinking about what's next and what he wanted to focus on. And he got really curious about climate. And so he started like a climate podcast called My Climate Journey. And then he started the podcast, then a Slack group. And the Slack group has kind of become this hub of anybody in climate who wants to meet everybody else in climate. And they do like, they do clubhouses, and they do like town halls on Zoom, and they do all kinds of activities, but it's all like, it becomes like the who's who of everybody in climate who wants to know about climate, and LPs and, entrepreneurs and policy people. They just have like everybody on the Slack, and it's just kind of this amazing resource for anybody interested in climate. And I think I even tweeted like 6 months ago, I don't know. I was like, who's building the My Climate Journey for space? Because it's like, wow, that it just feels like it's so ripe with so much stuff happening right now. Everybody wants to know, meet all the everything, and I think to do it, it really just takes somebody who cares deeply enough to focus and assemble all of that. So it's obviously a lot of work, but
that's a great.
I want to figure out who's doing that.
And FX content team, if you're listening, this is a great idea.
There's a lot of background material to distill, but then also thinking creatively about first, second, third order effects in industries. Like, I want to get Arnav up because he had a good question on this.
Hey, Arnav. So cool.
Hey, yeah. I was just wondering, out of all the buckets that you were mentioning, with what could be next in space exploration, because it seems like space is this unknown right now, and it's really hard to figure out what industries will really come out of it. So I was just wondering, with like whatever mental models you have so far about space, what you think the first like big industry will be out of this new frontier of space exploration.
Thank you for your question. And this is, where are you calling from? Where are you?
Yeah, I'm calling from the Bay Area. I'm in Fremont, which is like an hour out of San Francisco.
Yeah. Hey. This is the first answer that popped in my head. I don't love it, but I think defense is going to be a thing. I think Space Wars is going to be a thing, and that's really, really scary. Satellites too, but that's another thing where I don't know if I should. I'm a China conspiracy theorist is what people have called me. I don't think it's conspiracies, but like that's really scary. Like you want space right now is the Wild West. It's like uncharted territory. And there's not really many laws up there for like what you can do. So there's been, I read a few space books that I can send links to as well. But like, there's been issues already with like China's run experiments where they've shot down their mock satellites just to like see if they could do it. And obviously they have. One, that's scary just because there's no laws up there, but also it's scary because they can do it. But also it's scary because they have different morals, might be the right word, and as far as space trash is going to be a huge issue too. There's going to be space garbage men, I'm sure. So all of the satellites that they've knocked out, they haven't cleaned up. So that's sad and scary. Then there's all the satellite stuff, which I think is going to be another big thing. And satellites can be used for, a million things, taking pictures of everyone on Earth, which is the scary side. Like the Black Mirror episode, but also like giving everyone free internet access. That's a good thing. That's all to say that one of my other like macro, moral, corny reasons to get involved with Stoke is you really want space to be in the hands of the good guys. And not just for defense, but for like, satellites, like who's going to, Like I like to think, the whole Black Mirror thing, like that's scary. Like I hope Stoke doesn't like help enable that. So you want space to be in the hands of the good guys, which I know is subjective. I guess in some cases objective. And that's why I think it's so important to get the teams and people and all that kind of stuff right now. I mean, it's similar to crypto, right? Like there's a few different forks in the road that's a terrible pun that I actually didn't intend. Like there's the door will be fine. There's so many, there's various ways that crypto can go that you hope we pick the right paths now. This is a tangent, but like there's this guy, Jaron Lanier, who, there's a dog. There's this guy, Jaron Lanier, who talks about, he's like an internet historian. He talks about like ad supported media. And his thing is like the internet, when it started, you guys might be coming with me to answer the door. When the internet started, it wasn't. No, I just don't. I thought it was going to solve itself, and it didn't. When the internet started, it wasn't everything's going to be free. Hold on. Sorry, everyone. This is a true COVID moment.
Modeling good COVID behavior with the mask.
It was a delivery and a very anxious delivery man. It wasn't like it wasn't the internet's going to be free. Everything's going to be free. And then one day someone decided that things were going to be free and ad-supported media was the way to do it. And here we are. But if we could go back in time, would we have changed that? Who knows? So that's like a question I ask myself, is like, what's like the ad-supported media fork in the road for crypto that we want to make sure we make those conscious choices now as much as we can. What's the ad-supported media fork in the road for space? Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Like if we could turn back the clock, we might have chosen to not make everything free immediately. Let me just tell someone to stand outside for a second.
On that point, I wonder how much of the way the internet evolved as a kind of ad-supported free media is actually a side effect of us just not having economic infrastructure at the dawn of the internet.
Say that one more time.
That's okay. You also, no rush, but you're welcome to video mute, audio mute, whatever you feel comfortable with. It's totally fine.
Please go on mute.
No, it's fine.
You're good. This is a very authentic lunch break.
It's very real.
Yeah.
We always keep it real on lunch break.
You're seeing all of it. 10 minutes late, the dog. I want to hear your question.
I was just making the comment that some of the ad-supported media nature may have come because the internet, at the time the internet was starting to become popularized, we didn't really have economic infrastructure, like whether it's crypto is a more advanced version, but maybe just basic payments on the internet was a huge challenge. Like putting credit cards into browsers was kind of a shocking thing for many people in the late 90s, and certainly in the mid 90s, even worse. So I think it may be that it was like a natural law of gravity almost, how it had to evolve this way. And so I wonder, are there similar, not to overuse gravity, but are there similar like natural laws of kind of gravity around the emergence of the space ecosystem that could cause it to play out? Like, I mean, energy to me seems like an important piece of this, and I don't know all of how, is it more efficient to harness solar power from space, for example? I don't know. Is that considered? Is that a case? Does that play into sort of the economics of how space works and what are the sort of natural laws?
I think we're figuring all of that out, and I'm sure that I'm sure someone has more. Many people have more answers than me. I don't know if anyone has all the answers. Like my brother, for example, he's an engineer who always thinks he's right, and he's like, Teslas are actually worse for the environment because recycling the batteries is worse. So there's all these things that I don't think we know yet. I'm trying. I do think it's a race, and you just want the good guys up there, and then you trust them to figure it out as time goes on. Which was the internet too, I guess. Like for all my friends who hate Facebook, I think Facebook's. I don't hate Facebook, but like, aren't you just happy Facebook isn't a Chinese company? Like, wouldn't that be scarier?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I had information and turn crazy. So this is Mishti said, this is what will shut you up.
No, not at all. I mean, I actually have like these kinds of conversations with a lot of friends, and my dad. He's definitely on that side. I had a zoom out question that I've been thinking about this whole time, just because this is such a like new industry, especially it seems like you came into it sort of like soaking in a lot of information that you might not have known before, is about your general approach to learning about something where you have absolutely no background. Like, is it, let's find 5 people that I would really want to talk to and try to book calls with them? Is it like scouring the internet for generalist kind of reports first? Or how do you take deep dives? Because you must be doing this a lot now that your scope of investing is, I'm sure, pretty broad.
Everyone learns differently. I personally do deep dives by talking to people. So to the countless people who have answered my emails, thank you. That's like the only way I've learned. And sometimes I wish that I was more of like the read all the details person. Well, then you can read the details, but like that's like my gateway drugs are usually people. And my advice there is like, worst case, someone says no. Like email everyone. Worst case, they don't answer or they say no. But
are your habits often to kind of just cold outreach to somebody, or do you try to find a warm intro or use Twitter somehow?
I find a warm intro, but I recognize, like, I feel lucky that over the years I have a lot of like nodes that can get me the warm intros, and I recognize that some people don't. I feel very grateful for that. But honestly, space was a new one for me. My network in space is not what it was, so that was a lot of like random reaching out to people.
How did you identify those people you wanted to reach out to? Like people who were cited in reports or stuff, or did you use Twitter in a particular way?
Well, I asked Andy for some references. That wasn't a cold outreach. But then some people who like tweeted about space, I reached out to them. Mm-hmm. I was really making it up. The other thing I would say is in the early days of when I was like spending full time in crypto, I remember I was at one of your events and I was we're going back with someone afterwards. I don't know if they want to be quoted on this or not. And I said to them, like, I feel like I'm fronting, like all these guys are using all these acronyms and words I've never heard of before. And like, here I am trying to think that this is my job. And he said, welcome to the world of frontier tech, Morgan, where no one knows anything and everything changes 180 degrees every day. And I just remind myself that all the time, whether or not it's true, I feel better. No one knows anything. The problem with space is there's a lot of rocket scientists who seem like they know a lot more. But I am going to have to go, I guess, 3 minutes. But I was late. So I'll end on one anecdote, which I also learned through the space journey, which was very comforting to me, which is the general said in 1917, October something, the front page of the New York Times said, welcome, like, we're never going to fly. Like the equivalent, I forget what it said, something to that extent, like we're never going to fly. I think, something that extreme. And at the time, like the equivalent of billions of dollars had been poured into R&D for flying. And like every billionaire gave money to whoever their engineering friends were and were like, figure this out. And all these people had their existing mental models and they tried to figure it out the way that made sense. Like you fly in a straight line and you have to put all these things in the plane. And what happened was like time and time again, people were just crashing into the Potomac because it was like heavy and you can't fly in a straight line. And it took 2 bicycle repairmen from Ohio, the Wright brothers, to be like, why don't we mimic birds? And why don't we put wings that look like birds? And the Wright brothers didn't invent any new piece of technology. They just put the pieces together differently. And they came at it with completely different mental models. And his point was like, had they been engineers from that world, and maybe they wouldn't have had seen it because like, tunnel vision. So one of the things with Stoke is like, they're not reinventing. There's not really much technology risk. They're not inventing any new pieces. They're just like putting them together in a different way. So that's to the point of sometimes I think, again, maybe I tell myself this to feel better, that not knowing anything is an advantage sometimes because you look at it with different.
Yeah, I think as long as you can tap the networks of people who have the depth and you can maybe help figure out how they fit together, orchestrate differently than the world has seen before, or recognize when somebody somebody's pointing that out. That almost seems like the superpower to cultivate for kind of your role.
It was actually Andy's PhD professor who, I don't know if this was good or bad advice. He's like, don't ask too many people from the industry about this because it seems crazy and wrong to them.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many parallels to be drawn here of like big companies trying to do things. Anyway, so
yeah.
I hope we get to hang out again and talk more about it.
Let's do. Thanks so much for coming by. This was so fun.
So great to see you, Mishti. So great to see. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Really enjoyed it.
Accepting all of me and anyone who listened. I'm flattered you care. So thank you.
Thanks a ton. This is awesome. Have a good day.
Thank you, Morgan.
Thank you.
All right.
That was cool.
That was fun.
Yeah. That was a really nice point about being on the frontier of anything at the end. I never thought of it that way, but surely that's how it must feel to a lot of people. And if it's not feeling like that, it's probably a warning sign to you that you're being a little bit too entrenched or like overly confident in what you know and what is knowable even.
Yeah. I think it's again another. I mean, it's a theme that comes up a lot when we discuss these things with people, but I think there is a certain like uncomfortability that I think help. Like if people can get more comfortable being uncomfortable, so you sort of know what it feels like to be uncomfortable and just say like, okay, this is okay. We're just going to go through it. This is how it feels. I think it actually would, again, help more people kind of bring, take humanity forward in a way. So it's like, can we nurture that kind of creativity and kind of the risk taking? And I think part of it is, I think what she was mentioning is sometimes as a noob, you feel like there's like a language, maybe there's acronyms that you haven't heard, a language mismatch that you're not familiar with, and kind of, some sort of esoteric details that the rocket scientists may understand that somebody new to the space doesn't have the depth on. And I think the beauty is when you can say, look, I don't have the depth, but I can understand the pieces and I can understand the frameworks and help figure out how to put these things together in new ways, even if I don't know every detail about every piece of it. So it is kind of but it takes a certain, I think we should nurture that in people. Is it takes a certain amount of, confidence and comfort that it's okay to not know everything, and that, you can kind of augment and surround your ideas with other people who have more expertise and more depth in ways and try to help, kind of collectively get somewhere bigger and better. I'm going to do a quick refresh because I think we have a stage thing I'm going to sort out here. Let's see.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're not a host?
I'm not. Oh, now I am. Okay. Did you do something? Everything looks,
I refreshed also.
Yeah. Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
I refreshed and then became not a host when I returned.
Took away your powers.
I'm trying to incept somebody to do my climate journey for space. I think I almost had a bite there.
Yeah, and content team. Gonna share that highlight on Twitter and tag them. See what happens.
I know. I was looking for this quote. This "we're never gonna fly" quote. Did you poke around? I was not able to find it yet, but
No, I didn't look for it. That's a good one though.
I would love to see exactly kind of who said it, what the specific context was, and was it flight was around what 1907 was it?
Yeah.
We're never going to fly. 1907 in aviation. So March 30th was brothers Gabriel and Charles Voisin announced a successful test flight of the Voisin, company's first airplane. April 5th, April 6th, July is the first aerodrome with hangars opens in France. August 1st, the United States Army creates an aeronautical division. That's August 1st, 07. This is actually great. I'm just reading through. I know we talked before about sort of summarizing Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And, look at sort of like the work that the Pompliano folks are doing in summarizing Wikipedia, curating it. I almost feel like I kind of want to watch the video of, like this. I want to watch the video of this Wikipedia article.
Over time? Oh, that'd be pretty cool.
Like 1907.
Just like someone could build that with Internet Archive, or must have already, where you can just sort of like get snapshots of web pages evolving.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that one too. I was thinking of a slightly different thing, which is I shared this 1907 in aviation, and I was just reading things from it right now. Mm-hmm. I think it'd be cool if we could, I could read those while showing pieces of media related to it. I mean, maybe this is just screen sharing will solve this, but some way to like read 1907 in aviation. I curate the parts that look interesting, do a little bit more research, and kind of assemble that into the unit.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to find this quote, and I ended up here, and I got through most of it, and we're not yet at. I don't think I caught. So Wilbur Wright's 59-second flight was December 17th, 1903. So maybe the quote would have happened earlier. Here, erroneous predictions. Oh, this looks fun. Well, look at this. Okay. Here's I just bumped into this website. Erroneous predictions. It's foresight.org. Erroneous predictions and negative comments concerning scientific and technological development. I have a field day here.
Oh, this is going to be so funny.
We hope that Professor Langley will not put his substantial greatness as a scientist in further peril by continuing to waste his time and the money involved in further airship experiments. Life is short. He is capable of services to humanity incomparably greater than can be expected to result from trying to fly. For students and investigators of the Langley type, there are more useful employments.
Oh, I think this is my favorite one right
December
now.
10th, 1903.
Carrying man to the verge of the chimerical.
Wow.
Huh. Wow, this is great.
The Panama Canal is actually a thing of the past, and nature, in her works, will soon obliterate all traces of French energy and money expended on the isthmus. This one's particularly funny and relevant today, the Suez Canal.
Oh my god, I have such a funny tweet to share. Hold on. On that.
Okay, while you look for that, I'm going to read this. All mankind has heard much of Monsieur Lesseps and his Suez Canal. I have a very strong opinion that such canal will not and cannot be made, that all the strengths of the arguments adduced in the matter are hostile to it, and that steam navigation by land will and ought to be the means of transit through Egypt. That was 1860.
Wow.
Okay, tweet of the week. Steal his look. So good.
This killed me yesterday.
Self-adhesive wee-wee bin stickers. Oh my god. Oh, it goes on. Spring color palette.
Oh, I didn't even see the follow-ups. Wow. This would be an awesome Halloween costume. Note to self.
Wow, it really would.
When no one remembers that this happened in October, I'm just going to show up to some Halloween party where
you're like, I'm Is there any controversy? I haven't followed this thing close enough, but is there any controversy or story behind like who this is, what happened? Like, is this on behalf of a certain major liner or country, or was somebody asleep at the wheel or drunk or something, or like what? How did this happen?
I have no idea what happened.
I mean, it seems
else? We should look it up.
because this stuff has been. I mean, people have been using the Suez Canal forever now, right? Like 100 years. Boat technology is, navigation technology is pretty good these days. you can Google Maps your way just about anywhere you need.
Someone posted this on Twitter too. Like, there's extensive discussion on Hacker News right now about this, which I'm sure if you just got these people together, they could actually fix what's going on.
The size of this thing is just, mind blowing.
Yeah.
But we don't know like why this happened. We don't know.
I just Googled how did the ship, and the first suggestion is how did the ship get stuck in the Suez Canal?
The stuck ship, the Ever Given, has been wedged in the canal since running aground amid the heavy winds of a sandstorm on Tuesday.
Oh.
8 large tugboats were attempting to push and drag the ship from its unintended berth, the Suez Canal Authority said in a statement on Thursday. That's from the New York Times. Wow.
Oh my god. Oh no. This reminds me of Bodie McBoatface. Which has also been in the news recently.
Oh, really? What happened with Bodie?
Do you mean Sir David Attenborough?
Yes. Boat launched after 2 injured in accident on Scott's Lock.
Oh no.
The Sir David Attenborough.
I wonder how David Attenborough feels about that. Ooh, also, unrelatedly to boat memes, I saw that, I don't know if it's when it's happening, but today, I guess, On Deck is having their no-code demo day.
Oh, cool.
It is, it's happening right now.
Oh, wow, cool. Frankenstack. Can we just drop in, or?
Yeah, I just put in my email on this link. Let's see if I get an email.
I got a personal ticket. What do I do with the ticket?
So I think join now. I got an email link.
Okay, open event page.
Oh, 12 p.m. Pacific. Okay, so you can watch on YouTube or Twitch.
Is it still going? Or?
Nice, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Oh, I see Sorush asking about Ali. So Ali had to reschedule, right? Today.
Oh yeah. Ali had to reschedule. He just let us know this morning that he can reschedule for tomorrow or next week sometime. So we don't have a date or time locked in yet, but reschedule for next week.
Yeah, we'll email about it, or I can also DM you on Twitter if I find you. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, I'm going to see what's up with this YouTube stream for a minute. So what does no code mean? Like, what would they be using to build some of these? Like, I'm looking at this CRM, which looks pretty detailed right now.
Yeah, I'm on the thing right now, trying to catch. We're on Kieran Ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the general idea of no code is around using a bunch of tools that are more like a configuration of connections between software instead of actually opening up an IDE and building software. So you sort of, if you rewind the clock, 10, 20 years, if you want to build something, you kind of start with a command line interface or an IDE, and you start writing code and you start like collecting data and doing something with it and publishing it somewhere, storing it to a database, retrieving it later. And a lot of those, they call like a CRUD app. And a CRUD app, many of the functions of a CRUD app are sort of easily replaceable by like user interface, let's say, kind of units that could be kind of stitched together in new ways. So if the main function of an application is to like collect data, store it to a database, retrieve it at the right time, and present it, that set of things you don't actually, depending on what you want to do with it, presumably you don't need to actually write software to do that. You can abstractly write Lego building blocks that you could stitch together to achieve whatever kind of data collection, storage, and retrieval and presentation that you want.
Yeah.
So if you have a business problem, like, I don't know exactly what he's trying to solve, but build better communities, member CRM, analytics, engagement tools, those are, you could imagine sitting down to an IDE and writing software, but you also could imagine member CRM, there's probably some off-the-shelf tooling. Actually, I mean, like the Google Forms we use, right? Google Forms is a kind of an example of something that you would have had to write custom as HTML and, SQL and have maybe a web server. Whereas now you can just use Google Forms and you can basically accomplish it. I think the idea of no code as a concept is to, there's more and more platforms. I think Zapier's a popular one. Google Forms is great. Typeform is great. MailChimp is, kind of part of it. You don't have to build your own mail servers and do your own mail management. I think, what's the one that Retool is kind of another tool for kind of stitching together these things. If This Then That was a kind of an early one that I think is still, connect apps in new and remarkable ways, make the things you love more powerful. So it's really kind of like take these atomic Legos, build like little recipes that connect them and accomplish the things you want to accomplish without having to actually build software.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because it opens up the domain of creation to people who maybe have depth in a community or business problem who maybe don't have any expertise or depth in software development.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the downside is it's hard to do things that are like extremely custom.
Mm-hmm.
But the upside is you can accomplish a lot in proving what you want to do.
Yeah.
You know, actually, you could argue that what we're doing started as a no-code project, right? Like, I mean,
pretty much, yeah.
Like we were using Zoom,
and
we could have used Eventbrite, right? We were
Yeah.
collecting emails, and we used Eventbrite on some, I mean, I don't know, maybe ages ago, but we sort of took Eventbrite plus Zoom plus YouTube to figure out some of the core behaviors, and then we like hired a videographer to help publish or rework the video in the way we want. So we were kind of, I guess at the time we were just doing what felt right. We weren't saying like let's do a no code approach to Highlighter.
Yeah.
But we and Descript obviously is like, there's code that backs that kind of stuff, but we don't have to build all of that to try it.
Yeah.
So we've actually accidentally built Highlighter as a no code. And obviously that's not to diminish the code. Like the actual product we're using now is extremely code dependent and very extensive.
But every new feature, like the highlighting started as screen capture and then using Descript, or you can imagine other things that could be easily piloted.
Yep.
In a janky way with other stuff.
I'm kind of I feel like a little bit of two minds about this, because I think sometimes people go down the path of like, hey, we're going to do this no code thing as like our goal is to be no code. And that feels like it's almost like too religious in a sense. But I also think people go down the other path, and I think you could argue we're more of the latter, but a little bit more like, let's build everything custom.
Yeah.
And the problem with building everything custom is it like takes a long time and it becomes more brittle. It's harder to make changes later. So you really better know that what you're doing is the right thing by the time you're actually embodying it in code. And I mean, software is this like magical property of software. It's all configurable. It can do anything. It's just like an expression of human ideas. But it also is brittle in a way. Like if it works this way, then it doesn't work that way. And so it's really efficient at doing this and not that. You can rebuild it to make it efficient at doing that. But when you build it, it's built to do this. So I almost feel like we need some more centrist approaches where it's like, you're not trying to religiously be no code. I mean, it's fine if people want to, and there's plenty of opportunities to do those. But I think there's things where you can like say, hey, like I have a thing I want to work on and build and make for the world that, probably does require building custom software at some point. But there's enough, I can get enough of the human behaviors codified in my own workflows and habits by just using off-the-shelf tools and stitching them together. And I think that's kind of the best of both worlds if you kind of go in with eyes wide open on what you're trying to do and kind of how to find the right depth of kind of no code versus code.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't really seem like a dichotomy, more like a matter of timeline.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess that's the thing is I think in its best, it is more of a timeline issue. Like meaning I think it's fine for some things to start very raw and then graduate to being a great business that never really needs to write its own custom software. I think there's like plenty of examples. I mean, like every Shopify merchant is a no-code store runner, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like 10 years ago or before Shopify, you had to at least set up a Magento web server and get a Linux instance, and there's like stuff you had to do. Whereas now it's like click a few buttons like you're blogging and you can launch a web store. And that's hugely empowering. And I think if somebody got to big enough scale as a Shopify merchant, they probably start building enough custom things. They start with plugins and they want to extend the plugin to do a little bit more. But you kind of like, I guess maybe one of the lessons is just like keep it like very organic. Like don't get too far ahead of what you actually need and know you need.
Yeah.
And I think all the problems in the world come when you get too far. Like all the problems in software come when you like are imagining too far out. It's almost like more pragmatism in product design, let's say. or kind of
Yeah.
behavior observation seems like a benefit for everybody.
Definitely.
Are you still on the stream?
My tab is open. Let me see what's going on. It's stuck.
So these are capstone projects. I don't know enough about this, but I see in the YouTube comments it says
The No Code Fellowship.
to celebrate and highlight outstanding capstone projects coming out of the On Deck No Code cohort. To give exposure and visibility to talented builders, the event is open to everyone. We're excited to have you all join. So it's a demo day, but kind of more of a showcase than like a, let's say, like a fundraising moment.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing judges deliberation. This is cool. They have QR codes to vote for the crowd favorite. Does that bring you to like a website?
Oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this is Slido. We've heard about that, right?
What's that?
So Slido is like actually it's cool. So I just scanned their QR code and I get this website, which is like, I don't know if you can see that well. It's kind of probably not that easy to see. Propulsion Lab. So pick who's your pick for crowd favorite. So it's kind of like an audience engagement platform. So they can publish up on the screen a QR code. We can all use our phones to take it, and then we're presented with kind of like a poll, or I guess there's Q&A that you could use, but Q&A is closed. So it's a poll. Who's your pick for crowd favorite? And they have a list of all of the people who just presented. Oh, cool. And then they have the live, I know this is like a horrible way to show this, but they have live like graphs of which projects are trending. And do you see how they're moving?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Like
Yeah.
real-time updates of what people are, crowd favorites.
Yeah.
I've heard really good things about Slido. Seems like a cool way to augment. Yeah, I think it's sli.do.
Oh, I just see it.
It's funny whenever you go to these video related services, there's always there's a lot of people use like the same stock photography, like stock people. I recognize some of the faces from video chat as things I've seen in designs for other video chat services.
Oh my god. That's so funny.
Live Q&A.
Oh, I have a Twitter-related question. Do you know
Sure.
why people are changing their profile? This is probably such a noob question, but why are people changing their avatars to like these gradient circles? Do you know what I mean?
Gradient
Like,
circles. So like the 8-bit style? Is that what you
uh,
mean?
not sure what you mean. Like,
Like Dylan Field has kind of
oh,
a
that also I'm
8-bit.
curious about. That's not what I mean, but yeah, what's up with that?
I think that's kind of related to the kind of NFT movement, and there's, yeah, I think it's, I don't know if it's one collection of NFTs, but I think that's part of NFT culture, let's say. CryptoPunks is, I think,
How did
the
it start?
particular. My recollection is that CryptoPunks were one of the very early NFT kind of trading types, right around the same time that there were those I forget the something oh there were like those I forget the name. There those like funny frog ones. Have you seen those?
The Pepes?
Yeah, rare Pepes. So right around that same era when rare Pepes were kind of becoming a thing, CryptoPunks were also becoming a thing.
Uh-huh.
So I haven't followed all of what's. Oh, I see. He sent me a couple, Blake and contexting.
I don't know if this is just a coincidence, but then Eric Torenberg also. I didn't know if this was like a meme thing.
Huh. Oh yeah, that seems like a real thing. There's like too many people doing it to just be accidental, I think. But I don't know that one. I don't know what sort of the origin is, or
Is CryptoPunks an account, or was CryptoPunks like what is that?
I thought it was like a collection of art images that actually now that I look larvalabs.com, so it looks like it's, yeah, these are the punks themselves. Overall stats: number of sales 7,714 in the last 12 months. Average sale price is $25,506. So I think it's, a collection of kind of these 8-bit characters. Each one is unique. Each one has a number. Each one kind of has a vibe to it. And I
Yeah.
think you can kind of buy it, sell it, trade it, own it.
Hmm.
So we should maybe we should wrap soon. Just before we go, I wanted to point out. I know we didn't get a chance to talk at all about the. There were these. It was like another congressional hearing again
Oh,
around
is
kind of
this
social
where,
media, and
is this where Warren was saying something about Amazon, or was that just Twitter?
I thought I did see her saying something about Amazon, and I think Amazon tweeted back with a spicy reply. Did you see the reply from Amazon?
Mm-mm.
She kind of made some claim that like one of these guys is going to start paying their fair share. I don't know what she said exactly, but they kind of came back and they quoted all the tax that they paid in the last year or two or something.
Mm.
It was a little felt like people were not quite connecting with each other on the ideas.
Yeah.
One of the things I was going to share though is I thought that I thought that Jack Dorsey from Twitter had a pretty good kind of introductory remarks, and I think one of the things, you know, in which he tweeted, or at least I didn't watch the stuff, but I saw the tweets, and I thought the tweets, especially this one, which I shared, you know, we're all a bunch of humans with a desire to make the world around us better for everyone living today and those that come after us. We make mistakes in prioritization and execution. We commit to being open about these and doing our best to remedy what we control. I thought, you know, the whole thread, I mean, that kind of summarizes the thread, but I think the thread, you know, kind of doesn't take, I mean, I feel like you can be very polarized about one side or the other in these kinds of debates, and doesn't feel like it's healthy to dig your heels in on like, we're right or that's wrong or this is the right policy. It's just like, these are very complex things that humanity has never dealt with. So I kind of liked the way that he seemed to really articulate that.
Yeah,
it's all a series of trade-offs, and you know, Twitter's not claiming they got it right, but they're also claiming they're learning and improving along the way. Which, you know, I don't think any you know, regulatory body can actually suggest what is the right answer. It's almost like it needs to be a collective learning process, and it just happens to be that Twitter is positioned in their current, you know, location in the ecosystem of online discourse to you know, to try to use all the tools and people around to make better decisions and understand what the current state of the world is. But I think it's nice in how non-absolutist it is, when it feels like everything around these debates, you know, it's very focused on like finger pointing and trying to take sides. And I think it's like a very nice kind of centrist, rational picture of, you know, of the trade-offs and just recognition of the trade-offs and attempts to do, you know, to do a good job and to do better over time.
Yeah. Interesting. And he emphasizes blue sky a lot in this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's another one that I think we've talked before about blue sky a bit, but that's another one where it's like, you know, I'm optimistic that there are protocol-like features to what Twitter represents today, and that could be served by the company, and it could be a great business, or it could be embodied outside the company in some ways. I'm not super optimistic that, you know, I think a lot of people claim, oh, we should decentralize all the things, and like, great, if and when we invent technologies that enable that, I'm a fan, but I don't think we're like I don't think we've had great breakthroughs on much there. We've had like a couple key breakthroughs, but they're not, you know, they don't solve all of the things that people would like them to solve. Mm-hmm. So we can sort of say, we had one major breakthrough, now let's just decentralize all the things. And I think we actually need a lot more breakthroughs in order to be able to really create more decentralization around kind of technology and platforms. I think we know how to do it well in value. I don't think we know yet how to do it well in other kinds of technology platforms, publishing, media, communications, etc.
Right. Like what you were saying about the comment earlier with, you know, like if the internet had relied less on an ad-based model serving free content, but that was only unlocked by innovations and like paying mechanisms.
Right.
One of what those will be in this space.
Yeah. And one thing I've been trying to kind of wrestle with around this for a while now, but I think I'd say I have like a softer position on the full, I think Bitcoin's like an extreme example of what, you know, really strong decentralization looks like, meaning it's basically that nobody can really control it. It's really kind of a collective attempt at creating value, but it only requires that like religious belief, kind of back to back to Morgan's point around religions, is only really requires that religious belief. Doesn't really require like a lot more technology innovation than what has been accomplished. I mean, there's plenty to do to build out Lightning and, you know, make payments cheaper and faster and stuff, but the core breakthrough idea actually works. And I think we haven't figured out exactly how that maps to internet infrastructure. And I think I've taken the lens that if we're going to do it with internet infrastructure, it has to be decentralized to the same extent and with the same kind of apoliticism and untouchability that Bitcoin represents. And I think it's softened on that. I think it's more like maybe we don't need quite the same extreme when we're not talking about money. Maybe when we're talking about technology and web services and stuff, that there's less fully decentralized versions of those that can still accomplish a lot, give people voice and exit in accomplishing a lot, even if it's not as strong of a decentralization promise as what Bitcoin achieves.
Yeah.
So that's been on my mind, softening that, my expectation there. But
yeah, it would be fun to jam more on that topic. We've brushed on it a couple times, but not really spent like a full lunch break. I wonder if we can think of people who are either like working on Blue Sky or related things or thinking about this space.
Yeah. Let's put our heads together. We can poke around and see if we can find somebody interesting to talk to about that.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So with that, should we wrap our lunch break?
Sounds good.
All right. Off to lunch for me.
I might have a lunch also.
Okay.